So it wouldn't be another day in the gaming industry unless we had layoffs that we had to discuss and talk about. Well, apparently this is happening yet again. We have a developer that goes by the name of Tequila Works, which is now apparently auctioning off the rights to its games, including 4 games that are still in development. And the reason why they are doing this is because they are blaming what every single other studio is blaming, which is supposed market conditions. Again, ladies and gentlemen, I find it absolutely ironic that they are blaming the same market that is supposedly supporting all these other studios that are doing perfectly fine. And yet, for some reason, the studios like Tequila Works want to blame that same market and pretend as if that market's out to get them and pretend as if the market's just so difficult right now that they cannot compete. They cannot support themselves any longer, even though they were somehow able to do so for so many years prior, up until 2025, when magically all of this funding seems to have gone away. So let's get into this article, guys, from PC Gamer. But of course, before we do, if you are new here, just consider hitting that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it, and like the video to push us out into that YouTube algorithm. So it says, once promising developer Tequila Works is auctioning off the rights to its games, including 4 that are still in development. This is the developer of Rime and Guilt, is being split up and sold in parts. Last year, Spanish game studio Tequila Works announced that it was insolvent and closing, even after prior staff cuts and the cancellation of an unannounced project. This month, a page has appeared on the European auction site Ascrapalia that lists the various intangible assets of Tequila Works, its video game IPs, in development titles, and the studio's brand itself. The high bids for most of the published game rights, such as Rime and the one Stadia exclusive Guilt, are between 10 to 20,000 euro at press time. Now, guys, at this point, listen, I know they're an indie studio. I get it, right? And I understand the difficulty of having an indie studio, especially when your games just don't hit that hard. But at the end of the day, it makes you wonder, how were these studios able to survive for so many years prior to this year, where magically it seems like all of these studios that were so resilient before are just incapable of being resilient now for at least another year. They're all basically just chalking it up, throwing it out the window and saying, well, we're done. We are going to be insolvent at this point. We can't do anything. We are just completely cooked. And it just makes you wonder, why this year out of any other year? You guys were doing the exact same thing last year. So why can't you do this year? It's because, quite frankly, the subsidization is gone, right? That's basically what I'm trying to get at. The subsidization is gone. They don't have the ability to subsidize their company anymore with money that was basically being granted to them, for being XYZ diverse or whatever the case may be. A lot of these studios have lost that money. Now, granted, it seems like this is a European-based studio, but everything trickles down, right? What happens in the US trickles down elsewhere. That's just the way that it goes. The economic world is all pretty much tied together pretty nicely. So when one thing happens elsewhere, you're going to feel the ripple effects, even if it's not in your home country. So a European auction site hosting these games is really not that surprising. Also included are unfinished games with playable vertical slices, The Ancient Marina, an open world game, Dungeon Tour, a co-op party game, and Brawler Crawler, a multiplayer brawler with procedurally generated world. There are also concepts of 4 original Tequila Work projects that are billed as ready for production, since their creative narrative, visual elements, and copyright are all lined up. It's an inevitable consequence of the industry, but a middle-tier independent publisher developer like this doesn't always go out in such a direct and public way. In my experience, they're more often acquired by a larger publisher and quietly shuttered years later. Though that scenario isn't too far off from what happened here, Tequila Works' majority shareholder was Tencent as of 2022. Wow. So again, Tencent is everywhere, right? Tencent has its money literally everywhere. Tencent is one of the majority shareholders over at Ubisoft as well. Tencent likes to put their hands in everything because they want creative control over as many things as possible. And the way that they do that is by trying to acquire them as cheap as humanly possible, right? So I'm not surprised that they're involved in this and that they're the majority shareholder, because if you look at a lot of these companies, you're going to realize that Tencent is a majority shareholder in a lot of these companies. Not surprisingly, absent from the auction is Song of Nunu, a League of Legends story which Tequila Works developed for the League of Legends juggernauts, now defunct Riot Forge label. Last year, Tequila Works general manager Terrence Mosca said in a statement that he was proud of the Tequila Works team accomplishments, but that prolonged market conditions meant insolvency was the company's only choice. Now, again, guys, they're never going to be honest with you. They're never going to be honest with themselves. They're never going to tell you the truth over why they just couldn't make it. Quite frankly, you couldn't make it because the people couldn't stuff it, right? They couldn't give you the actual work that was required to make you guys successful. You couldn't come up with anything that was going to be big enough to, garner some money. You guys were too busy making whatever it is that you were making. And at the end of the day, it just wasn't enough, man. The market spoke. You could try to blame supposed market conditions, but let's be real, man. Anything Tequila Works developed really wasn't that big of a hit from what I've seen, right? Nothing they've ever worked on was a big enough hit that will somehow continue to fund their studio just based off the sales of the product itself. It's literally impossible. The only way that they were able to survive is if somebody was subsidizing them. And at this point, I think the subsidization is gone. The money is no longer there. So they can't take the money if it's not there. Since its founding in 2009, Tequila Works' game development philosophy has always focused on creating things with gusto. Said the company's statement, "We are doing everything we can to provide support and guidance to our teams during this difficult time." Now, okay, let's look at one of their games. I'm curious. What was one of their games? Rime? Okay, so Rime. Let's check out Rime on Steam. So if we're looking at Rime, again, this was made by Tequila Works, and the publisher was Greybox and 6 Foot. If you look at Rime, 7.9 years ago, an all-time concurrent player base of 634 players with a 24-hour peak of 10 and 4 people playing right now. If you look at the pricing history, the lowest recorded price ever for this video game was $2.99 from an MSRP of $29.99. So this game was getting hoarded out to oblivion, and it just wasn't enough to garner enough of a player base, even when being hoarded out, right? So they have an estimated sales of, and it's ridiculous. Look at this, is all over the place. 132,000, all the way up to 800,000. I think I'm going to safe to say that it's probably in the lower bracket here, right? Because these numbers are usually much higher as it is. And then you got to imagine, okay, so out of this 130 some odd thousand, how many of it was full price? Not many. It's pretty obvious that most people out of that number did not play it at release, which makes you wonder, okay, so chances are most people played it at the $2.99 price. So if you were to take that number and times that by that dollar amount, it's not very impressive. It's not enough for them to be able to survive on for 8 years. How is that going to carry their studio for 8 years? It's impossible. They have some other games that have released, but I'm sure that they are nowhere near as popular as this game. I'm sure they're probably around the same, to be honest with you. So again, it makes you wonder, how are they able to survive for so long on just a couple of $100,000 spread across 8 years of being, since this game Rime itself. Now, keep in mind, the studio's been around since 2009, so that makes it even more ridiculous. Again, they have funding from somewhere. They have funding from clearly some sort of company. It could be Tencent, right? Who really knows? But they got funding from somewhere, and they were being subsidized. And quite frankly, the subsidization is no longer there. That's basically all it is. This game is cooked, just like the studio is cooked, and they are now officially selling off their IPs to the highest bidder. So you can add this to the list of studios that have been destroyed in 2025. We do have a list here that showcases exactly how many studios have been killed off with how many people have been fired, if we have the information public, and this will be added as time goes on. It was updated on 4/16 last. We got to update this again. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you did enjoy it. If you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video, comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.